Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our regularly scheduled council meeting of the municipality of Thames Centre. The date is Monday, November the 4th, 2024. The time is 5 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. There is an addition to the agenda, as staff are proposing the addition of a closed session under the section 239 brackets 2 brackets K of the Municipal Act to consider a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, and this does require a 2/3 majority to be processed that. So a mover and a seconder for anyone in favor. Anyone opposed? Okay, a mover, right. I'm way ahead of myself tonight. Okay, moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All right, now we will call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, so that motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to approve the balance of the November 4th regularly scheduled meeting and be approved as amended. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And motion carries. Thanks. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest amongst the members of council? Seeing none, there are no announcements this evening. But we are going to be starting with a couple of delegations and presentations. The first one up is Commander Ross Stewart from the OPP and would like to tell us what's up. Anytime you're ready, go ahead.
Is that better? Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come before council tonight. I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago with CAO Barrick, and specifically with regard to the annual billing statement that I know the municipality has now received from the OPP, and specifically in relation to 2025. And the fact that there are some notable increases in the cost of policing that you have seen from a result of this billing statement that has come in. If I'm not mistaken, the increase is reflective of an 18.31% increase over the previous year. And I know that that is a tremendous amount of money for any municipality. I can appreciate that that may be a shocking increase of something that as a council you may or may not have been anticipating or were prepared for. So I wanted to take the opportunity to come before council, provide a little bit of background information as to why we are seeing this, and answer any questions. So I do feel that it's important that have that opportunity, not just tonight, but if there's questions going further, that I'm available for that. Sincerely, I would encourage you to please reach out to me if there are questions. I guess the starting point would be to remind council as to how the billing model works from an OPP policing standpoint, how the dollars and cents are calculated, if you will. There's a number of factors that go into the policing bill from the OPP. One of that is the total number of household and commercial properties within the community. Calls for service, and we call that base service. Calls for service is an element that is also built into the cost. Essentially, pay for the calls that our officers either react to and tend to within the community or proactively they generate. And then there's also some additional, for example, overtime, prisoner transportation, court security costs, those types of things. What I will say is that approximately 90% of the bill that your municipality and every other municipality in the province get is directly related to OPP, uniform and civilian members' salaries and approximately 90%. So by far, that is the lion's share, not only of the increase, but in fact, the entire bill. And the main reason why you see such a dramatic increase in the cost of OPP policing for 2025 is because our uniform and civilian members have been without a collective agreement since 2022. And back on July 18th, our uniform members ratified their new agreement for 23, 24, 25, 26. So in essence, your bill is reflective of the increase in salaries for 2023 and for 2024, which were salary increases of 4.75% and 4.5% respectively. And of course, the benefits that go along with that. Now, as you may recall, prior to this year, Bill 124 was in place that the public sector employees capped wage increases at 1%. And essentially, this increase that OPP officers have now received puts us on par with what other municipal police services in the province are getting. I will tell you at one point, I believe we're number 26 in the province for pay. This new contract does put us at number 1 in the province. But I will tell you, it is not a dramatic increase over and above the others. It is in line with what other municipal services are. And really, policing is one of those industries where you have to be competitive from the standpoint of financial remuneration to our members if we're going to recruit. So this contract is a reflection. But unfortunately, it does result in a notable increase, not just for Thames Centre, but frankly for every municipality in Middlesex as well as around the province. And my detachment commander colleagues around the province are answering the same questions and things. So that makes up the main reason for the increases that you see. However, there is another component to this, and that is calls for service. And when we look at calls for service, what we don't want to do within our billing model is do it strictly based upon a 1-year average, because that will not account. That'll just result in abnormalities within your next bill if we have some high increases or decreases in calls for service, and it really isn't pretty. So as a result, we average the calls for service over 4 years. And part of what has happened coming out of COVID, a number of years, for 2 years during COVID, we saw a fairly notable decrease in calls for service, not just locally, but across the province, across the country. And that 4-year average now, we've worked our way out. So we're now back above previous calls for service levels prior to COVID. And what I would say it was an artificial depression of calls for service numbers because of the pandemic has now come out of the equation for how your bills calculate. There are those other considerations such as prisoner transportation, court security, those types of things. Frankly, those are very, very minor when we look at the larger picture of what's happened. And essentially, that is why we are facing the increase. I'm welcome to answer any questions that I can with regard to that. The one other thing that I will say is that when the OPP is doing their cost reconciliation reports and receiving estimates earlier in the year, one thing that we do not do is predictive analysis as to where salaries will fall if our members are within. So that's another element of this as well. So when you got your estimates earlier in the year, that was prior to the collective agreement being implemented. And as a result, there was no consideration given to the 4.75 and 4.5%. Any questions that I can answer with regard to?
So thanks very much for, I can't say good news, but thanks very much for your explanation. So I will turn it over to council if they have any other questions or comments. Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through your worship. Thank you so much for coming here. I don't envy your job having to, talk about this. And just a question regarding the increase. So how much of it would you say is because of retroactive pay?
I think retroactive pay is a portion of it,
Mhm.
for sure. Our members are looking at almost 2 years of, or a year and a half of retroactive pay, so that is a component of it.
Yeah.
But that's only one element of it, because there still is the 4.75 and 4.5%, which are.
Okay. So because there's some retroactive payment in there, is it possible we might see a decrease next year since it's just part of it as a one-time adjustment?
I suppose that's a possibility. I wouldn't want to commit to that being a definitive thing, but certainly the retroactive pay would be a one-time thing. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for coming out today. I think a lot of us had questions and that did clarify some things. I have 2 questions for you though. When you refer to calls, is that the direct emergency 911 calls or also the non-emergency line calls that are put forth?
It's an excellent question. So it includes both. And calls for service isn't as simple an equation as it's a call. There's actually 8 categories that we break the calls for service down into based upon what we interpret as averages for how resource heavy. So category 1 would be your calls that require the least amount of resources. So for example, a barking dog. Category 8 call would be very complicated homicide, where we're going to have forensics and detectives and the helicopter down and all sorts of different resources. Each of those calls, whether it comes in as a 911, whether it's through the non-emergency line, or whether it's proactive as a result of our officers' action. So for example, doing foot patrol downtown Dorchester in the middle of the night and come across somebody trying to break in. That becomes a break-in enter investigation, falls somewhere within those 8 categories, but in a very real sense, it's generated by our officers' proactive actions.
Thank you for that. Just a closing comment on that is I do find that often when talking with residents here, we direct them to the non-emergency line because we know that your crew here is sometimes at a stretched thin with the area that there is. And that I find, I don't know, maybe this is just my own perspective, is that there's a lot more reactive measures here in Thames Centre than proactive. And I only state that in the fact that when we're talking with residents about traffic complaints or something like that, if your team is not there to witness it, we direct them to call a non-emergency line to have someone respond, hopefully in the future, to catch that infraction. And my second question is, you mentioned that the current agreement goes until 2026. Do you anticipate there being big changes come that, I don't know, redeclaration of services, considering that this last portion was like a significant jump in salaries and such? You probably can't answer that, but.
Do I need to start over? Okay, good. If for whatever reason, all of our members were tied up, we would very simply ask Oxford OPP to come. They're all provincial police officers. They all wear the same uniform. They will come. Likewise, if something major is happening in Ingersoll and additional resources, we send resources. So, I don't know if there's a concern, but if there is any concern with regard to perception of, our availability or our presence here in Thames Center, I can tell you the numbers that I look at on a regular basis demonstrate to me that our officers are out doing what they need to do, reactively and proactively. There's always room for improvement, and that's where I really encourage that communication piece with me. And me and CAO Barrick have a really good relationship where he can call me and say, hey, listen, or send an email and say, this is what we've got. This is a concern, and we'll react to it right away. So I would encourage everyone to continue with that because that helps me understand where the needs are that I just otherwise won't. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I really want to thank you for your clarity and transparency on that. I think it's comforting to hear that this increase isn't just fluff, and that the services are being upheld here in Thames Center. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Councillor Heeman?
Through your worship, it's very comforting to hear that we have that that fulfillment of all the vacancies. And I've seen the recruitment car out at some public events, so it's good to know that those efforts are paying off. And as you mentioned, like part of having a competitive wage strategy for the province is for recruitment. So it's good that we're not in that situation locally, but it doesn't mean that it's not warranted in general. So yeah, thank you. And I got some speeding complaints, but I will put those through the proper channels.
Deputy Mayor Smyberg?
Great, thank you. Just to add on to what Councillor Crockett had said about the increase in wages, I do think it can tend to go back to the arbitration system within the province. I do believe that that's probably what's driving up some of the salary costs. And I know that AMO has looked at that and is trying to kind of deal with that kind of moving forward. So that's something that's on their radar. But I do want to congratulate the detachment commander. He's really done some great things for our community within Middlesex County. And as a new board, we just had our first meeting last week. He actually provided lots of great encouraging information, lots of good statistics that seems to be trending in the right direction. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. And I would echo the, because we've been getting great service out here, and I think your leadership is showing that you've been very responsive to what's been going on in the municipality. I just have one small question, I think, before we let you go. Under the calls for service, the category, like, what would you say would be sort of the number one or two on the list in this general area for calls for service for the OPP? I just remind you to turn your mic on. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I can have a quick look here at the breakdown. Certainly, without going through and dissecting all the numbers, I would suspect that traffic-related complaints are very high, as they are in other communities. Mental health calls throughout the county are very high and increasing, as they have been on a regular basis. No question about that. We receive a lot of calls that we would classify as assistance to the public. And that can be a wide variety of things. That could be a broken down vehicle, that could be providing advice. Maybe a lower tier call, but certainly one that we come across a lot. Suspicious persons, suspicious vehicles. Those may seem to be maybe not noteworthy. I can tell you that those are extremely noteworthy. Because oftentimes though, it's those persons and those vehicles that lead us to property crime related investigations. So those are ones that are very common and that we encourage lots of folks to be calling us about. We do face a lot of false alarm calls, whether residential or business, where the alarm goes off and our members attend and there's nothing wrong. It's a false alarm. Motor vehicle collisions are another very high. And again, not just here, but probably across the province. Our motor vehicle collision numbers within Middlesex County are on the increase, both from property damage only standpoint, but also from injury and fatality standpoint, which is interesting in that our enforcement and proactive patrol numbers are also up. So I'm not sure how to interpret that, to be honest. I would only say that I wouldn't want to see what our collision numbers were if our officers weren't as engaged as they are. And again, I don't know that that provides any comfort to anybody, but it is consistent with something that we are seeing, actually not only in Ontario, but across the country. Collision numbers are increasing. So Madam Mayor, those are probably the main calls that we would face within this community.
Oh, thank you for that. I think we can all witness what's going on out in the roads these days, and I don't always envy you your job. Any other questions from council? Anyway, keep up the good work. We're happy to have you here this evening to present your report, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Well, again, thank you. And sincerely, if more questions come up after I leave, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. I'll be pleased to answer them or make myself available to council.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, next on our agenda is presentation by I'm distracted tonight. All right, a mover and a seconder that the presentation regarding the 2025 OPP billing as presented by R. Stewart, Detachment Commander, Middlesex OPP, be received for information. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. Now, Kara, we can invite you up to give a presentation on economic development and tourism, whenever you're ready.
Well, good evening, Your Worship, and thank you for the invitation to be here. So through you to council, I'm delighted to take a few minutes of your time this evening to just update you and talk about the economic development and tourism initiatives of Middlesex County, introduce you to our staff complement and a few other things so that you're familiar. So first and foremost, I will introduce you to our staff complement, which includes myself as Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the county, alongside Dimitri Makrakos, who acts as our full-time Economic Development Officer, Paul Napitkit, who is our Tourism Officer, and known to many people as his years at the county working in corporate communications after he started in our department many years ago. So we're delighted to have him back. Devin Vandenburn has been on contract with us and will continue as such for the remainder of this year, working specifically on some workforce initiatives in conjunction with the province. And then we are lucky enough to have Kelly Hunt, who is our Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator, who keeps things running in the office for us. So the county itself, of course, has strategic priorities that are outlined in its own strategic plan, and the Economic Development Department follows suit and creates a 5-year economic development strategic plan of its own in concert with that. So I won't go through all of these, but just to let you know, the work of the department coincides with both of those strategic initiatives and aligns very well with each. And so if we're working on something, it's because we're aligning it with both the economic development strategic plan and that of the county itself. So a couple of initiatives this year to update you on. One of the things that we embarked on that we had not previously is something called a tourism investment toolkit. So this was actually a partnership together with the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, looking at the investments that could be made with respect to tourism on a development standpoint throughout the county of Middlesex. We were lucky enough to be able to engage the services of C.B. Richard Ellis, a well-known development and real estate company, to work with us alongside to identify some properties of interest, but also some priorities of interest. This has attracted the attention of the province, and I'm very excited to tell you that later this month, we're actually going to be attending an investment Dragon's Den that the province has set up. Where we'll be speaking specifically with some developers looking to make investments in the tourism sector and particularly in Middlesex County. So we're excited to be able to do that. So that's been one of the projects, and that was presented to council just a couple of months ago. We also this year embarked on a commercial investment attraction strategy for the entire county. This one as well, we were lucky enough to do in partnership with the province. This one actually done with the Ministry of Rural Affairs. And what we've been working on is looking at the county as a whole, looking at any gaps with respect to commercial investment, looking at opportunities. And the province has worked with us to not only do a gap analysis, but also an action plan, which is going to coincide in lead generation and specific meetings taking place with commercial developers throughout now until the end of March of 2025. You may be familiar, you may have even attended a familiarization tour. We do these as a bit of a pop-up tour now throughout the county, organized for elected officials as well as staff of the municipalities, as well as business leaders, to see what's happening in your backyard, to see what's being made here in lots of cases that you maybe didn't know about, or operations that have been in existence for a long time that we would really like to highlight. So we've been doing some of these, and we've done some in Thames Center as well. We also, if you're not familiar with, you know that Thames Center was one of the municipalities to embark upon creating a CIP, or Community Improvement Plan, which is something that the county has been encouraging municipalities to take part in for the last few years. And just so you know, from the county perspective, we have contributed to the development of your CIP in terms of a financial contribution of 50% of that cost, but we also continue to invest in your community improvement plans. So the County of Middlesex, under the Municipal Act, is not allowed to have a county-wide CIP, but what it is allowed to do is partner with its lower tier municipalities in terms of providing a contribution to your efforts to support your CIP. And so when you make investments in CIP incentives, we then make an investment back. So your municipal staff will apply to the county for reimbursement of 50% of what they have invested into an incentive for one of your local businesses. So this is how we contribute back into your pot, if you will, in terms of you being able to make long-term investments into your CIP. So we're excited to see how that process will be undertaken here in Thames Center. And your CAO knows we just did a review actually of the CIPs throughout the County of Middlesex, but we've also done a review of CIP offerings that are being done here by our municipalities in comparison to some others in Ontario as well, to just give some context and some future thought to things that might be extended. In terms of county-led foreign direct investment, so the county is very much engaged in what we call FDI, or foreign direct investment lead generation, which means that we set out not only to generally promote the county as a place to invest in industrially, it means that we also go specifically and set up meetings with companies who are showing an interest in expanding within our area or that are looking at doing more business here. What we know for sure is that investment follows trade, and so we make many meetings throughout the year, and we do that on a couple of different levels. So the first and foremost is we do our own county-led, so specific interest that we have in looking at business investments. And so we've been quite successful over the last few years to be able to solidify funding through Global Affairs Canada, specifically for Middlesex County, to engage in lead generation for FDI. And we've been working together with a company called Research FDI to do that over the course of this year and going into March of next year, because they've changed the funding program for the Can Export Global Affairs program. We will conduct 3 shows, 2 of which have already taken place. So we've met, we did the National Plastics Expo. We did the Institute of Food Technologists, and we are doing Expo Manufacturer in the new year. We also, with the assistance of Global Affairs, both from a partnership and funding perspective, developed a whole new FDI strategy for the next 3 years for the county. We also partner with many of our neighbors to do FDI, because depending on where you're going globally and the types of investments you're looking for, they may be specific to the region and be more beneficial that way. And so we're part of 2 collaboratives right now. The first is called Ontario Food Cluster, which I've been having the pleasure of chairing, and we'll be giving that up this year. But I have co-chaired this organization for the last 4 years. It is now made up of 16 municipalities throughout Ontario, as well as paid membership from OMAFRA as well. Specifically looking at investments for Ontario in agri-food and agri-tech. So some pretty big industries in Middlesex County. So this year, again, we acted as the banker as well as the co-chair for the organization. We were successful in acquiring Can Export Global Affairs money for that initiative as well. And I just got back from a show last week, and we've done 3 again this year. So Summer Fancy Food Show, CL, which is one of the largest food shows in the world, and Supply Side West, which is more of an ingredient show. So over 100 meetings have been undertaken this year with that collective. We have another collective that we're part of called OMCA, which is the Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance. And this one is specific, obviously, to looking at manufacturing investments. They've done 2 shows this year, Hanover Messa and the International Manufacturing Technology Show. And are looking, they actually had a meeting this morning to look at some other shows as well. So just so you know, many of those in our relative region are part of this. So this includes the City of London and LEDC. It also includes Sarnia, Lambton, and many of our neighbors. So we share many commonalities, and we have quite a bit of power in terms of being able to present the region for its investment possibilities. So talking a little bit about industrial land development, obviously there's been a lot of attention placed on the region, and there's been some interesting land development taking place in Southwestern Ontario in recent years and coming up. And so with this, the province, you may have heard last year, and again, they're revamping for this year. They've created sort of a database and inventory, if you will, of available industrial land, and they did a call out to municipalities. And so we worked together with all of our lower tier municipalities in 2023 at the end of it to create an entire Dropbox database, which we share with the Ministry of Economic Development with respect to available and potential industrial lands throughout our community. That's now transitioning. They've actually decided to share a similar GIS platform that we have at the county in order to collect and put those onto a different mapping tool. And so we'll be working with them as well. So we've registered for that database and we'll be part of their promotions. We do have a section of the Invest in Middlesex website that is devoted to business parks, and those are identified here in Thames Centre. There's several areas of investment identified, some of which have fortunately or unfortunately been sold out. But we are working with your local staff on an ongoing basis to ensure that information is kept up to date, to ensure that that information is known to all and that investment possibilities are coming to your municipality, and anything new is presented as well as opportunities for future consideration. We're also thinking about how we might be able to add some new privately held land to those databases of business parks, which is always a tricky situation, but we have some interesting things happening. And in Thames Centre, you've got some good opportunities that are coming to bear with more of a collaborative co-op, if you will, type of structure to business parks and such. So as that evolves, we'll look to work with those landowners as well, not just with publicly held lands, but privately held lands to ensure that they are promoted in the best way possible. You may also have heard the county loan program has been revamped recently, and so this is something new for council to be able to entertain investment opportunities that may come from lower tier municipalities. Previously, the Middlesex County Loan Program was underutilized, and it was set up for non-growth related infrastructure projects. And now it has been revamped to look at opportunities for growth infrastructure projects. So we have been hearing interest in that, and we look forward to applications that may come to the county with respect to how we be able to assist in ensuring that there be infrastructure investments made that can promote more development in this area. We also, and we've worked with Thames Centre, we worked with the municipality on the Thorndale Business Park as one example of how we can collaboratively partner with the province, with the county, and with your municipality in terms of certifying lands. There is still a program that is put through the province with respect to making sure that lands are, as we call them, investment ready. The province in this case has a program established whereby it pays about 50% of the cost of readying those lands from archaeological or other studies that need to be completed. And so we did work with Thames Centre to get Thorndale in place, and that was a very successful investment in terms of that land being utilized for employment lands. So those programs are still available. The county still invests in those through our departments. We pay about 25% of the cost. You pay 25%, and the province contributes 50%. That program now extends not just for certification, but it got extended a few years ago to also include marketing of those lands. So once they are certified, not only does our office and the province promote them as certified, they will actually pay for part of your marketing as well, what you determine you would like to do in terms of promoting them. So those types of services are always available, and they are open as well to privately held lands. So something to be able to talk to constituents about, landowners who may be interested in looking at those kinds of investments. Certainly a big part of our work involves the existing businesses here in Middlesex County and looking at their retention and expansion. We have lots of those things coming to bear in Thames Center. I'm very excited about lots of the development that has taken place and continues to take place among existing businesses here. So we're consistently engaging with your companies to talk to them about what their possibilities are, to talk to your staff if we are being contacted about opportunities for development or questions with respect to how they might fund those opportunities or other things that they may be looking to invest in. We also, if we're going to set up meetings here locally, we will contact your staff as well and make sure the invitation has been, if appropriate, to staff and council to have conversations with those business investors to talk about what it is that they would like to be doing. We do as well have a business retention and expansion survey that we either provide to local municipalities so that we have consistent questioning, or we might have a discussion coming up about blanketing county with those questions to do a bit of a sort of status update with our current companies going through. I should also say we do partner as well with groups like the Workforce Development Board each year to do the Employer One survey, which is a bit of a touch base as well. County has a formalized business appreciation program. This goes everywhere from new business startup all the way through to anniversaries and milestones. And we have different awards and such for all. So we always encourage anyone, whether it be a resident, a business owner themselves, a member of council staff, you can utilize. We have an online form that just informs the county of something going on if we haven't heard about it through other means. We certainly like to celebrate at the county level any investments taking place or any milestones. So there's a really simplified application there that can be utilized for that. In terms of general resources, just to remind people, the county keeps an updated business directory. We just went through an exhaustive process of trying to update it. But of course, things change every day, and we can only garner the information that's available to us through registrations of business. So if you're ever on the business website and look at the directory and you see something that maybe isn't right or hasn't been added yet, please don't hesitate to ever reach out to us. We really do try our best to keep informed, but it is a large county and things do change readily. That business directory is mappable. It's searchable by NAIC code. You can look at, say, an investor's coming into the community. They want to know how many pharmacies there are on the east side of the county. You can pull that information up quite easily. They want to know how many farms are in the north. You can pull up that information. You just want to isolate Thames Center's business directory. You can do all of that within the system that we have established there. Investors Guide, otherwise known as your community profile. We do one for the county each year, updated with respect to employment information, labor force information, demographic updates, which certainly there's been lots of as of late with the growth in our communities. All of that is updated generally on an annual basis, and we ensure that you have copies here at the office, but also they're available online as well. Available properties is also something we have a relationship established with Realtor. And so therefore, when you come onto the Invest in Middlesex website, you have a direct line into just the isolated properties available for lease or sale. And we have every property, residential, commercial, and industrial that's on market, available and searchable by community on our website as well. Sponsorship funding. So when we look at investments, obviously we look at them for the whole of the county in terms of benefit to all, but that does not exclude any municipality or any local group from accessing sponsorship through the county that would be available to all. So let's say, for example, you decided that there were a number of requests coming into the area for a particular business workshop you wanted to host here in Thames Center, we would be delighted to work with you and partner with you. The only ask we have is that you open it to people coming from other municipalities as well if they were interested in doing that. Okay. We also have a newsletter. Again, we don't bombard inboxes. That's not our goal, but we have a quarterly newsletter that goes out that talks about economic development and tourism, things that are happening throughout the county that we do find people have of interest. So that's something that you can sign up for just on our website. And then we have file tracking now that we put in place in the last year. And so this is really going to help our department to establish its KPIs and information going forward, where we can track every conversation we've had with businesses or municipalities to talk about different things. So if there's questions, we'll be able to go into our content management system. The county as a whole doesn't have this, but our department has invested in this to ensure that we can track existing businesses, but also new investments coming in. You may have heard in the community that we have undertaken an Economic Development Corporation feasibility study this year. So council supported staff looking at whether or not our service delivery would be best delivered in an internal department in continuum to what it has been doing for the last 10 years, or whether it was time to look at some of the structures that have been established by some of our neighboring communities. So I'm sure that you're aware that St. Thomas, London, Sarnia, Lambton, and others have economic development corporations in place. So consultants were entertained over the course of the last 6 months. A report did go to council with recommendations, and that has ended up in a recommendation that a strategy be brought forward to the budget committee at council. So no decisions made with respect to what that's going to look like, but there is a report on the agenda of the budget committee that will be considered at that time of whether or not we remain internal. We remain internal, we'll be at the point of doing a new economic development strategic plan for the next 5 years. Our last one was developed in the wake of the pandemic, so a few things have changed since then. If it goes the other way and we look at an EDC, it will be a business plan and implementation strategy that comes forward. Few things to talk about with respect to tourism. There's lots of opportunities for promotion and support, and that extends not only to municipalities, but also to organizations and also event hosts and businesses. So just to give you a kind of smattering of things that we get engaged in, the county, as you probably know, access the Destination Marketing Organization, or what's referred to as the DMO for the region, which means it's our job to promote as well as develop tourism initiatives. And so we partner oftentimes with what's called an RTO, Southwestern Ontario Tourism Corporation, or RTO1 is our regional body that we are able to tap into partnerships, opportunities, funding, lots of times that can benefit the businesses or the county as a whole or municipalities in terms of fostering tourism promotion and development. So lots of campaigns, data information, those types of things that we may require in order to foster development. We also work with our tourism partners in terms of their experience development. So we've had a number of successes in this realm with businesses across the county who have really elevated the offerings that they are putting out to the public in recent years, extending their season and bringing in new products that have been quite exciting. And we also oftentimes will bring bloggers and influencers. So oftentimes we'll have the opportunity to partner with the RTO or to partner with your businesses to bring in promotional efforts that otherwise maybe they couldn't afford. Also a lot happening on social media. and lots of successes with respect to that. We've been doing a lot of reels and promotions that have been attracting attention. We also do information racks. So rather than having one central office for tourism for the last little while, we have had tourism racks available in all of the public libraries, all the main ones, as well as a couple of additional ones as well. For example, we were invited by the Holiday Inn Express that just came in to Adelaide Metcalf to place a rack in there. So we maintain those racks as well. So that information is available throughout the county. And event promotions. So there's a free calendar available on the Visit Middlesex website. People can do that in their jammies at midnight if they would like, and you just enter in any of your events. And I must say, in the last 10 years, it has blown up in Middlesex County in terms of the offerings and events and fun things that there are to do here. So that's very well used. Also within the realm of tourism, we do a number of guides. So you've probably seen these circulated throughout your community. The culinary guide, trail guide, and grassroots official visitors maps are all produced internally by our departments and made available throughout your communities, and certainly highlighting many things that there are to see and do and enjoy here in Thames Centre. We have another campaign that you may have seen and has highlighted some Thames Centre businesses in the past called Hands to Table, or From Our Hands to Your Table. This was a partnership developed with Sarnia Lambton Tourism and Economic Development, as well as the Federations of Agriculture across both of those counties, to really talk about the inherent relationship between farm producers and culinary providers. So again, this campaign has attracted quite a bit of attention, and we just finished a harvest menu. So we had about 15 different restaurants create special menus for the month of October. And then we have a couple of video promotions happening this month as well. We do a tourism fam tour. This one's a little bit different. This one isn't so much for our elected officials and staff members. This is for our tourism operators themselves. Oftentimes, the tourism operators are, of course, very engaged in their own businesses and don't get an opportunity to get out and see best practices and things happening across the region. So we do this to build partnerships, which I'm very happy to say has happened many times over. And so we hosted our fam tour earlier this year and took people to a number of different places to see what's new and exciting happening across the county. And in that vein, we also have a tourism sponsorship program. So this one is available to both new and existing festivals and events taking place throughout the county. This has been taken up many times here in Thames Centre by both private operators as well as the municipality for its investments. And we thank you for creating new things and offerings and expanding upon your current offerings as well. So we have a sponsorship level of $1,000 for existing ongoing events, and then a sponsorship level of $2,500 for new events coming in. The intention of this is not community-based events. The intention of this is visitation from outside of the county into your festivals and events. And a simple application form is available online for this each year as well. Marketing and advertising is a pretty big part of our job. So there's a lot going on. I've just given you some smatterings of things that we're investing in terms of, you know, you may see commercials on CTV, you'll hear them on the radio throughout the year. We also invest in a number of print publications, which are very popular, particularly on the tourism side of things. But on the investment side of things, we do make investments in advertising as well. Many digitally based, but also a number of print magazines that are specific to site selectors, real estate investors, and the like. Videography and photography is also a big part of it. We conduct something called Making It in Middlesex. This is a round of campaigns that we really highlight what's happening with different businesses throughout the county. It's free of charge to the businesses to be participated in that, and they very much appreciate that. And we did a feature this year here in Thames Center, and we do that in partnership with local municipalities as well. The businesses receive that information, the municipality receives that information, you receive photography, videography, etc. that can be used for any of your promotional material as well. And then, of course, we do tourism, videography, and photography. And we're always open to suggestions. So we often encourage staff to contact us if they're looking for particular videography or photography. We can usually work it in partnership with things that we're undertaking. We do some work over on the workforce development side as well. So we have chaired for many years the Middlesex Workforce Development Partnership, which is a collective of all of the employment services as well as workforce development agencies throughout Middlesex County. They meet pretty much on a monthly basis and undertake a number of projects and have their own action plan as well. So we've been very lucky to work together with the province on a number of initiatives, including those that Devon's been working with us on for the last couple of years. We just finished an overhaul of the Work in Middlesex.ca site, which contains a database of jobs available free of charge to any employers in the county, but also a barrage of resources for both job seekers and employers looking for information, training, all the rest. So all of that is sort of in one place. And this year we worked with the province to develop a new intake to that portal that now allows more of a direct matching between employers and job seekers in terms of the information that each is looking for and the resources that we can quickly get to those people or employers in response to what their needs are. We've done a number of videos as well, highlighting cooperative education opportunities throughout the county and just some absolutely wonderful employers that are making investments into young people. And with that, I guess the other thing is to know that we do work together with our partners on workforce development as well. Many of the partners work across Oxford, Middlesex, and London. And some in Elgin as well. So we're collectively talking about what the needs of the region are, engaging in that employer one survey for the region and trying to respond accordingly to what those needs are. So with that, I thank you for your time, and really our department is here to help. So whether it's staff questions or whether it's resources needed of council, dealing with business owners or looking at new investments, we're always here to assist, and we're always open to your questions or what you need.
Thank you, Kara. That was a really comprehensive report. And as to your videos, I've had the opportunity to go online and watch the Hands to Table. It's really good. I was particularly interested in the one on Arva Mills. So if you haven't had a chance to have a look at it, council, I'd suggest that you did, because I learned a few things about that operation that's been ongoing for a number of years. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for coming in, Kara. I know that I had a few questions when Ina and Bill came in regarding tourism. So thanks again for taking the time to come out here and kind of let us know everything it is that you and your team are doing across the county. I more so have comments than questions in particular. The first being when we were looking at your strategic plan, I found that it aligned quite well with what we're looking to do. One thing that we've gone ahead with this council is develop an economic development committee. So we're moving in the right direction. Specifically to that rural revitalization, I think we have a lot to offer here. And I would state that I find maybe we underutilized or we have a lack of knowledge of how to access all the campaigns, promos, and opportunities that Middlesex has in the tourism and ECDEV departments. So thanks for bringing that to light. I think there's a lot of opportunities as well with the industrial lands, that promotion that you shared with us this evening. I know you mentioned Thorndale, but perhaps there's also opportunity. We have a lot of land along the 401 corridor here, so we'll see what can happen there. And then finally, I just want to reiterate our probably token tourism attraction being the Royal Field. So you mentioned working with Devin and the rec team there, but I hope we can see some more things coming out because we had a presentation from the Great Lakes ball team earlier this year, and they had some pretty awesome things that took place this past summer, and I'm sure that's going to continue in the years to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. Did I see your hand up there, Councillor Heeman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Director Finn, for giving us all this wonderful information. And I think the comments about the 401 corridor are very poignant. And I think, another one of your colleagues was here at our last meeting giving us an update on the PPS, and it looks like there is potential to expand commercial and industrial zoning acres. So I think we'll be working very closely, and I do appreciate the change to the loan program, where I think that's sorely needed to put that infrastructure in place. We have a lot of dry industries, but I think some of those bigger employers like a little liquid in the mix. So we need that loan opportunity to get the pipes in the ground. So, and that's welcome news. One thing I didn't see, well, I guess two things. And again, I want to congratulate the county for all the work that they've done advocating for high-speed internet, because it looks like we're almost at 100% completion in the county. And I know there's lots of partners involved in that, but it's been pushed locally by the county for a long time. And likewise, I was just curious, I didn't notice a transit update, which usually is one of your files. So I was wondering if you could speak to that briefly.
Through you, Mayor, to the council members. Thank you for the question. I won't say that's by accident, Councillor Heeman, in that until last Thursday, we were sitting in a bit of a quandary with respect to the continuation of the existing community transit portfolio. As you know, the current funding model was established for intercommunity transit, and it was established with an end date that we knew to be coming of March 31st of 2025. I can tell you that we have received some communication that may allow for a bit of an extension to that. It is not a permanent extension, and is only for those communities that may have some funding available to do a continuum. We also will have something coming up on council at the next meeting with respect to some other opportunities for us to look at our existing system. And there certainly are some new announcements that have taken place, although we feel very strongly that those announcements are not respective of the amount of money that we need available in Southern Ontario for the continuation of public transportation. There is some money that has been announced, $5 million, that may be available to develop a system. And so many groups are working on this at the current time. I was on a Western Ontario Warden's call earlier today, and there's much discussion about it. And I would expect that there will be availability of presentations specific to public transportation to come to Thames Centre in the upcoming months.
And probably highly competitive.
Yes.
I have just one question for you, and this concerns the FDI. Does County of Middlesex accumulate any sort of data metrics on, for example, going to trade shows or American or international trade shows, conferences, as to the quality of any sort of lead generation? for example, if you had, say, 10 leads, how many would be what we might call a quality lead that might, and then that extends a little bit to, I know because County of Middlesex is made up of 8 different municipalities. So anything that you can share with us about any of that data? Do you keep records?
Yeah, so that's the reason why we have undertaken the content management system that we have put into place in our department. That's not shared by every other department, particularly, that's engaged in lead generation. We also ask for reports from our lead generation consultant each year that identifies the prospects that they've undertaken, and we must report that information to CanExport through Global Affairs as well. So there certainly is a tracking system in terms of, the size of a show, the type of lead, how that boiled down into the specific meetings that we have undertaken. Unfortunately, as you know, economic development and investment is a long-term game, and so quick wins are not always to be realized. Many of these opportunities take years to foster relationships with these companies, and oftentimes they're looking for a stepping stone when we first undertake a meeting and lead generation. So, for example, they may be looking for a particular supplier. They may be looking for information with respect to entering the market, quota information, or market information. And we will work together with the province or the federal government to do that. So yes, we do keep the data. We certainly can identify how many prospects, how many meetings were taken. In terms of the quality of it, it would be subjective, in some respects. In some, it's not. In some that have actually led to the establishment of a particular industry, we can certainly point to, where we can say the county was involved. They were the first point of contact, and now that has generated in X amount of jobs and X amount of investment. We certainly can do that. But if you were to look at the whole, it would certainly be a long-term gig.
Y-
Yeah.
I do realize that, but I was just wondering, sort of in the broader, because we've been at this for a little bit, so I just kind of wondered, so where it all shakes down.
And really it comes down to, industrial tax, right? And one of the reasons why we're putting the emphasis on things like readying lands and infrastructure so that we can move the pendulum. We've done a really great job on the residential, side. There was a time when I first came into the county where that had to be the emphasis. Certainly, things have swung a little bit to the other side, and now we're concentrating more on the efforts that you've seen, like the commercial and the industrial.
Thank you for that. Another question.
Through your worship. So I don't think you really answered the mayor's question about, like, have we actually, like, I see all this international, travel in here, France, Vegas, Mexico, like how many new businesses we actually have brought in because of success, because of the trade shows?
So again, it would be difficult to say, particularly if we've got things in the hopper, right? So lots of times we have established relationships where, things are building and they may not have come to investment. Middlesex County has not been engaged in FDI for that long. So can I point to specific investments that have been made? Absolutely. I can also point to investments that have come from those trade shows for existing companies, which I, wouldn't be able to specifically disclose, but there have been certainly conversations that have taken place with companies that have ended up in fact, in Thames Center fostering some significant investment in partnerships. So, so we would be able to point to those and talk to them from an investment and return on investment perspective. But again, please keep in mind that when you look at trade shows being attended. Because of the consortium, we don't attend all of those. What we do get is every lead that was generated from them. So our staff, you've seen how small it is. We are not attending all of those shows. We couldn't possibly do that. That's why we pay into the consortium. And we pay a very small fee overall for the lead generation that we receive in return for it.
Thank you.
Good. I think that between the two, that answers the question. It's just from the broader perspective. Anyone else with a question? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Chair, I just want to thank you and your great team for all the support that you provide to the Thames Center and other municipalities. My question is about business retention. Are you seeing any trends there in terms of what we as a municipality need to know to be able to kind of help them stay in the municipality?
Well, I think through your worship to the councillor, I would say existing businesses are becoming more savvy. They are becoming more heavily invested in. So many of the things that we've been seeing, and we've had these conversations with staff, these are some pretty large investments that people are looking to undertake. And one of the difficulties we have is what we've talked about already in terms of readying land. So we have a number of companies, and I'll say here in Thames Center, that are looking at making significant investments that they may not be able to do where they are. Oftentimes, and has been the case throughout Southwestern Ontario, this is not just a Middlesex issue, is that companies have continually expanded within the confines of the land that they're on. Sometimes that's their own residential land that may have evolved over time, or they started out small and now they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And the risk we have is that we can lose those investments to other regions because we're not ready for them. We just don't have the infrastructure that they require. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing now, is that our companies have been extremely successful. They are taking on new investments and partnerships with foreign investors, and they're getting to a point where we may not be able to accommodate them if we're not flexible and if we're not ready.
Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a bit of a controversial point, which is how do we grow more entrepreneurs and more small businesses? Because you know, a lot of businesses are here are local businesses that depend on our local market, and then they're not gonna get up and run away. And I just that this occurred to me because again, I know the county has some um, representation on the Western Fair Board's board, and the Western Fair Board has taken a big initiative with the Grove and incubating small businesses. And I was just wondering if there's any way that we can be that kind of rural urban linkage for, you know, agri-food businesses that may not have access to the kind of capital investment that they have put in the Grove and growing the small businesses that we have in the rural area.
Through you, Your Worship, to the council member, it's an interesting topic of conversation, and certainly one that doesn't go past us. I happen to sit on the advisory board for the Grove, and I think it's been a wonderful investment for its own realm of what it's able to do. There are some current funding programs that we are taking a look at that may foster more of what you're looking for. There's one in particular that's being made available. It's only open for the next month or two, that we're taking a look at that may foster some small grant type programs, specifically for incubating agri-food businesses. You know, we're limited in the county in terms of not having a space in order to do those types of things in that some other municipalities have been able to invest in. We do not have such a facility. So it really has to come down to partnerships. We are lucky enough to have a Community Futures Corporation here in the county that does have the ability as well to lend resources particular, and they could market themselves accordingly. If they would like to look at something, say, particularly to an agri-food type of program, that availability is there. The other thing we do not have in the county, and one of the things we've looked at as being a potential opportunity, is looking at more of the enterprise centers. So enterprise centers, as you may or may not know, are funded through the province, whereas community futures corporations are funded through the federal government. And so there may be an opportunity. If we look back 20 some years ago, when I first came to the county, the federal government at that time thought Middlesex County was well served by the banks and other institutions that were established within the city of London and didn't require a CFTC. And that was a bit of a fight to get that funding in place, and it's been in place for some time now. The same has rung true as of late in terms of our requests of the province to undertake a bit of an investigation as to whether or not Middlesex County would be well served by having an enterprise center of its own. So that's something that we've started the conversation on, and I think it's one that needs to continue. So either partnership needs to take place on a little bit of a higher level with existing resources, or we have to see if we can make a plea for additional resources particular to the county. For example, there is an enterprise center in St. Thomas, there's an enterprise center in Ingersoll, but not one in Middlesex.
Is that it for questions?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
So a mover and a seconder that the presentation regarding Middlesex County Economic Development and Tourism updates as presented by Kara Finn, Director of Economic Development and Tourism, Middlesex County, be received for information. Councillor Heeman and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. Good night, Kara. Okay, at this point, I'm asking for council's consensus to move to agenda 10.1 to consider the report 2024 fall economic update. And again, it's at 10.10 on your 10.1 on your agenda. Consensus? Yes? Okay, all right, we will move over to 10.1 then. So CAO Barrick, whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So you have before you the 2024 Fall Economic Update respecting the municipality of Thames Center. Last year, council may recall that you passed a resolution requesting staff to prepare a 2023 Fall Economic Update. And it was at that time that information was provided, as well as a staff commitment to continue to do these annually. The province has released its economic fall outlook October 30th. And so you have some of that information as part of this report here with respect to the GDP forecast between 1.7 and 2.3% for the province of Ontario in the next few years, as well as talks about employment growth numbers and the deficit position for the province. So that provincial information is there for context for this municipality. We heard from the county and their economic update, and then attached is additional information and statistics related to the local economic activity, so population, job growth, land supply, as well as permit activity, permit types, permit volumes, etc. So that information is here for you to receive and answer, ask any questions that you may have. And we're available to answer any questions as well. And this, I think last year was a lead up into the budget deliberations. And so similarly here in November, this information is context for future decision-making by this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any questions from council or comments regarding this, the economic updates? Deputy Mayor Smybury.
Yeah, just wanted to thank CEO Barrick. It was very informative. Just a couple questions. The growth rate and also the population. Where does that information get pulled from?
Thank you. Through the mayor, this information is pulled from the Middlesex County Business Directory. Thank you.
And then, so my second question is with respect to development charges. So there's, unfortunately, it looks like there's a downward trend in that, but interesting enough though, the development charges collected seem to, there isn't like a really drastic decrease from 2022 to 2023. Is that because of the type of development that we were looking at in terms of maybe moving from residential to commercial?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I might ask Amanda to be on standby to answer the balance of that question. What's not here is 2024, but I can, at least on the chart, but there's some information listed on the second page. 2024 looks like it's shaping up to be same as 2023. So looks that dip downward looks like it's going to flatline and ideally start to come back up. With respect to the rationale in terms of the types, I would look to Amanda Story, Interim Director of Planning and Development Services, maybe to answer. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sure. So I was looking at, originally was looking at the development charges collected, so it looks as if we're on a downward trend. But when I take a look at the development charges collected year over year between 2022 and 2023, it doesn't seem to be kind of a drastic decrease from 2022 to 2023. So I just wanted to know, is it because of the development charges or the development type that's maybe driving some of that? So maybe not, are we seeing more commercial or industrial? I guess that's what I'm.
We had no
Okay.
commercial or industrial DCs.
I thought we were collecting for commercial. Okay, thank you.
We are collecting, we just had no projects that we're collecting
In
for
2023.
in
Okay,
2023.
great, thank you.
Correct.
I might add
Yeah.
on the second page, there's a breakdown of planning application types. It shows by year as well. So you wouldn't necessarily get, commercial industrial as referenced, but there is some additional information there. Thanks.
Anything else from the members of council? Councillor Heeman.
Well, I just want to applaud staff on the 7.5 day turnaround for permits, and I think that's exceeds the provincial requirement, and look forward to seeing those numbers and our KPIs moving forward. So it's a great number.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman, and also to staff for doing such a great job in all of this information and keeping both council and the public up to date on what's going on in Penn Center. Personally, I found the graph regarding the demographics very interesting. Anyway, if there are no other comments or questions from council, we will move that I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that report number CAO-009-24 2024 Fall Economic Update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. All right, now back to public meeting regarding drainage. So 7.1 is Court of Revision for the Elliott Drain Branch A. The Court of Revision will hear any appeals to the charges being assessed to properties on the Elliott Drain Branch A as outlined in the engineering report provisionally adopted on October the 7th of 24. And we have a motion before us, it's actually two parts, that council adjourns its regular meeting at 6:28 PM to sit as the Court of Revision under the Drainage Act to consider the Elliott Drain Branch A, and that all members of council be appointed to sit as members of the Court of Revision. And at this point, if anyone is interested in acting as the chair of the Court of Revision, you can indicate that now. Otherwise, I will carry on. But that seems to be, talk about consensus. I guess we have consensus on that one. All right, so then I will then be the chair. So a mover and a seconder for that motion, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? All right. Let's move on. Okay. Under 7.1.1, appeals received. The jurisdiction of the Court of Revision is limited to specific types of appeals. Any owner of land assessed for this drainage works may appeal to the Court of Revision on the following. Land or road has been assessed too high or too low. Land or road should have been assessed but has not been assessed. Due consideration has not been given to the type of use of the land. Under 7.1.1.1, we're looking at the appeal from the Jones property, number 020-246-04. The Drainage Act allows property owners to file late requests for an appeal at the first sitting of the Court of Revision if the court wishes to pass a resolution to hear late appeals. So we're looking then to the engineer's report. Or are we
To make
here? Any late appeal? None. All right, then.
So we do have the one.
One appeal in front of us, yes. Okay, Mr. DeBoss, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. At the Court of Revision, it's my job to explain to the court how we derived and why we derived the assessments that are shown. The Drainage Act does spell out certain types of assessment that are to be assessed by the engineer, and then there's instructions given. There are generally 3 or 4 different types of assessments. There's special works, either could be section 26, which would be a road, railway, or utility. If you're usually crossing it or you have extra work due to the construction and operation of that particular entity, would be separated out. Then we also have special benefit, which would be again for special works, but for a private property, not a public property. In this case, the fire hall property would be in that category. And then we also have statutory benefit, which is described in the Drainage Act and defined in the Drainage Act as better control of surface water, better control of subsurface water, increased land value, better crop production, and improved aesthetics. So it could be any one of those things that would pertain to a particular property would be assessed for benefit. And then the third one, or the last one, is outlet. Outlet is defined in the Act as the volume of water that each property would send into the drain, either physically now or potentially in the future. The drain is not necessarily designed to take care of today's situation. If there's properties that aren't connected that could connect in the future, we still design and calculate it based on the fact that they could. And so the biggest factor of that would be the amount of area that each property has that's tributary to the drain, and then the land use and the runoff, how fast the water runs off and goes into the drain is the other factor. We do calculations. We use a method of distributing the cost, which is referred to as the Taja method. He was an engineer in mid 20th century that developed a method that was accepted by other engineers as well as OMAFRA. There are appeal bodies that would hear a higher level appeal than the Court of Revision. So the Drainage Tribunal, which is operated by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, And through previous decisions, this TAJA method has been accepted as the method of trying to distribute the cost fairly. That involves breaking the drain down into different segments if warranted. In this case, we do have incorporating existing works that are already there and constructing new works. The lower portion of the drain, we are constructing new works up to a certain point, and then we actually incorporate existing pipes that are there in the upper part. So we did separate it into two pieces, and we assessed those pieces independently with the same mechanisms, but you look at them and distribute the costs based on their own qualities or their own requirements and uniqueness. The lower section is from where we start at the bottom end up to the Jones property, where we get onto the Jones property and start to incorporate works, and other water comes into the drain Jones property, and also a little bit from the township property, the Thames Center property. The TAJA method explains to distribute that ratio of benefit to outlet based on a proportion of the cost. So given the circumstances of the type of runoff, what we're building, why we're building it, you establish a percentage of benefit that would be in relation to what's outlet. Then we distribute that benefit to the parties or the properties that would be benefiting from the work. And we've done that. I do have breakdowns here. We do calculations. And I guess I would probably suggest here that I will hand them out to the members of the court and also the appellant, if that's possible. Don't typically do this. It is showing how we break down the benefit versus the outlet. Once the outlet is established, then there are other sheets where actually we start taking that outlet and distributing it amongst the properties. But we call section 1, which is that bottom section, has a total cost of a little around $31,360. In this particular case, we do have Fire Hall property, which has a new driveway on it with asphalt curb and two pipes that go underneath it. Part of the concern that the landowners had raised was that the development of that property has blocked water that was getting away prior to that development taking place and that improvement to the property. For that reason and the amount of effort and cost it takes to get from where we're starting to the Jones property with the asphalt. So it's a relatively small project and a limited number of properties. So the costs climb pretty quick to each property when we're doing it. So we felt it was best to charge a special benefit to the Fire Hall property for that work that it took to get across the lane. And that, if you look at the calculations, is $13,720. We added a little bit of design work, a little bit of HSG interest to create a total of just under $15,000 as special benefit to that particular property. The remaining cost is then distributed by ratio. Again, the nature of this construction being urban, relatively small, very limited area, benefiting a relatively small area. We used a very high rate of benefit at 90% and distributed that benefit to the particular properties that would be benefiting, which would Thorndale Road, Municipality of Thames Center, and the Jones property. The remaining cost of $1,670 is then distributed as outlet to the watershed. We do the similar thing with the next section. The next section includes a new catch basin, a lead to the Jones property, and a new lead to the Cameron and Grove property. that particular section, again, it's a little bit different in terms of what's being built and how and why we're building it. It's further away from the outlet and the effects of whatever may have happened on the Thames Center property don't exist. So we didn't do the same calculations. We do have benefit and outlet. The benefit rate is 85%, and that benefit is then distributed amongst the parties that would be benefiting, with the remainder of $2,750 shared by the people who have water going into the drain, into that particular section. The appeal itself is dealing with the concern, I believe, is dealing with what was going on before and after Thames Center improved their property and blocked water off from getting into this particular area. The drain physically is not up to the Jones property now and would have had cost to do that regardless of what had happened. There was a laneway there before, there was a fire hall there before. And so we had to come up with what we thought was the fairest number, taking all of that into consideration. We don't have the ability to go back in time and analyze what was there before. So when we did our proportion of cost, we came up with numbers in terms of, we had $3,500 benefit to the Jones property on the lower part and $3,100 on the upper part. That seemed appropriate to us. Again, without the ability to go back in time, it was a challenging effort. And if the project was truly not necessarily going to happen, if that issue didn't arise, then, you know, the appeal itself would have some merit. It's hard to know. And, you know, we came up with what was something not quite 100% of the issue being Thames Center, but also the fact that something would have had to been built regardless, and money would have been spent, a drain would have been needed. And you know, we try to do that best of our ability. So at that point, I would open up the questions from the court.
Okay, just before we do that, Mr. Jones, did you have anything that you wanted to add concerning your appeal? Okay, then. The Court of Revision has the opportunity to deliberate in private if that is necessary. In which case you can indicate that, and we can go across the chambers to the office here. Any wish to do that, or are we fine with what's ahead of us here? Oh, sorry, Councillor Crockett.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? I guess it'd be to Mr. DeVos, just on clarification of, I'll call it the final owing, the rate. In the appeal, it distinguishes the reallocation of $1,000 of requested, a request to reallocate $1,000 to the Thames Center Municipal Fire Station for drainage works on the Jones property. Is that what is currently quoted to them for the work? And then these are new options, or sorry, the numbers just don't align to me. If I could get clarity on that. Thanks.
Okay. If you go to page 9 of the report, there's what's referred to as Schedule C assessment for construction. And that has a total of $49,700. That is the total cost of the project. And that includes both section 1 and section 2 combined. So that's all of the work. That's the engineering, that's the construction, that's the allowances, taxes, everything combined. We looked at them in 2 independent pieces. Then you combine those numbers together and put them into this schedule. So there's a special benefit to Thames Center of $14,690. The benefit is 3,560. The outlet is 90 for a total of 18,340. Then you have Jones property is 6,620 plus 1,673 for a total of 8,293. And then you have the Cameron Grove, 1,560 plus 836 for a total of 2,396. And then the Young property of 358 and Thorndale Road of 18,850 benefit and 1,463 outlet for a total of 20,313. That's generally what is being considered in the appeal. There are allowances and there are other things that may affect properties if certain properties are eligible for grants. That may affect their net assessment, but that's not what's considered when parties appeal to the report. They are appealing the numbers that I just read to you. And I think what's being asked and what's being suggested by the Jones property is that they feel that the $6,620 benefit is too high. And they feel that there should be $1,000 taken and shifted from that number. My suggestion is that if the court is considering it, that it should be added to the 14,690 number, just based on the concern that's been raised. That's the judgment of the appellant, is that it's not as fair as what it should be to that property. The difficulty that we had was that we couldn't go back in time and really see what was there beforehand. We did our best to consider everything that we could. You know, if the court wishes to make that alteration or that change, I can understand that they might want to do that. Again, it was very difficult without having historical information.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Is it the will of council to go out of the chambers and discuss this matter? I'll just ask for one moment while I consult with the clerk, please. Thank you. So as we are not, I'm sorry, Councillor Heeman, if you have something.
I would like to make a motion to approve the appellant's request for the $1,000 special benefit to be transferred to the municipality of Thames Center.
Okay. All right. So the decision before us, and as per the motion, that I'll just read it for clarification, that the benefit costs on roll number 020-246-04H Jones be reduced from 6,620 to 5,620 because the request is reasonable due to the construction of the fire hall, and that the difference of $1,000 be assessed to the special benefit of the municipality of Thames Center roll number 020-246-01. Okay, a seconder for that motion. Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Great, that motion carries. Thank you very much. So, we can now adjourn the Court of Revision at 6:48 PM, and a mover and a seconder for council to reconvene in regular session. Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you both. Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Mr. Jones. Okay, council, we'll move on to item number 8 on your agenda, which is the adoption of minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting held on October 21st, 2024, being approved as circulated. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 9, consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Mover and secondary. Oh, but I believe that we are having 2 removed for further discussion.
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Smybert.
that would be item 9.2 and item 9.3, please.
Okay, when you're ready. Anything you want to say on either of these?
Well, as per the delegation that we received this evening about the increase in the OPP billing, I'm sure we're going to see more of these resolutions. I just think the more that we can try to advocate our position to the province, make some noise, probably better than not doing anything at all. So as these come in, I'll probably will continue to pull them, but I'm just looking for support to endorse item 9.2 and 9.3. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crockett.
Additionally, I'd like to make a comment on 9.4.
Okay. Go ahead.
Earlier, or so I guess late last week, I had a resident reach out regarding the wait times at his family doctor for an immediate appointment that he needed for his son. So when I saw the agenda come out, I did flag to him that I wanted to put forward support for this motion.
Okay. All right.
Just in follow-up, he reached out to Rob Flack's office and they directed him appropriately to put forward a formal complaint. So
Okay. So in this particular case, then the consent agenda, and what we're looking for initially is received for information items 9.1, 9.5, 9.6, and 9.7. Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. And then the resolutions for 9.3 and 9.4 moved by, I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
So the resolution, you've got a draft idea for, we had 9.2 and 9.3. Yeah.
When you turn the resolutions over to the clerk.
So for agenda item, it's 9.2 and 9.3 that we've drafted something, and hopefully you're comfortable with it, that the Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre supports the resolution from municipalities that are calling upon the Ontario government to immediately implement sustainable funding for small rural municipalities by reabsorbing the cost of Ontario provincial policing force back into the provincial budget with no cost recovery to municipalities, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to Premier Doug Ford, Solicitor General of Ontario, the Minister of Finance, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and Member of Provincial Parliament, Rob Flack.
Thank you. I didn't move that.
I'm sorry, a seconder for that, Councillor Crockett? All right, all in favor? That carries. A specific resolution for, 9.4.
So the drafters wording we put together, be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Thames Center supports the resolution of the municipality of St. Charles, the town of Petrolia, and the city of Belleville, requesting the province of Ontario to take immediate action to ensure family physicians are properly compensated with immediate fee increases, and that the administrative burden now being experienced by family doctors be reduced so that they have more time to see their patients, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Health, the Member of Provincial Parliament Rob Black, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
All right, okay, moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. All right. We have done the fall economic update. So the 10.2 is the 2025 council meeting schedule. That report number LS-012-24, 2025 meeting schedule be received for information, and that the 2025 council meeting calendar as appended to this report be approved as presented. E-mover and a seconder. That was Councillor Lockie. And a seconder, Councillor, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
So just before
It-
we vote on that. Yes. Just, yeah, just for vote on that, I just wanted to thank the clerk. I thought she did a good job of compiling all the different committee meetings, like both local and county and conferences, different organizations. It's difficult to do, so good job. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I was going to make that same comment that the clerk's office has been making extraordinary efforts these days to do all sorts of things that make our life much more easy. Anyway, a question over there or?
Yes. I have a
Okay.
question. Sorry.
No.
Through you, your worship. We had our Thames Center Sports Wall of Fame committee meeting last week. And there was a change to the meeting schedule that I just wanted to flag before we go in.
I do believe it was updated.
I just see one that's different.
Oh, okay.
I have in my schedule that the February 4th meeting was moved to February 11th, or do I have that wrong?
Okay, so what the committee
Okay.
supported or sent to me was the wrong date or the 4th,
Okay.
but we
Well,
can- I
it
will
makes sense
clarify
because
it.
the March 4th one is there, so I think I just have it wrong in my calendar.
I will, I can totally double check that though, without a problem. Before we post this online, this is just kind of a receipt for information.
Perfect, because I think everything else is aligned, and thanks for your work on that.
All right. Are we good, Janet? Okay. So we had a mover and a seconder. All in favor? All right, that motion carries. Reports of committees. Items listed under the reports of committees are approved by council in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. So unless that's the case, Councillor Crockett?
I would like to pull 11.2 for further discussion, I guess.
All right then. So we will do that. And so a mover and a seconder then for 11.1 to be received for information. Or I'm sorry, as presented. Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smyberg, all in favor? All right, and then I'll turn 11.2 over to you, Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Chair of the Thames Center Sports Wall of Fame Committee, I just wanted to point out a motion that was passed at our meeting last week. those that are aware of what the Sports Wall of Fame does is we have a pretty stringent requirement for joining or being accepted onto the Sports Wall of Fame. This is because when it was formed a number of years ago, we didn't want it to fill the entire arena with all of our amazing athletes. We wanted to ensure that this was reserved for kind of top of class. So through conversation, the motion that was moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Don Robinson was that we are going to give each sports association within Thames Center be able to honor individuals who have excelled in their individual sports or respective sports on the recognition wall located in the hallway to the Lions Community Center. This also aligns with kind of filling the new Lions Active Center with some decor and allows all of the sports associations a place to showcase all of the amazing athletes, coaches, or whomever they wish to choose to feature. Thanks.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Crockett. So, Councillor Heeman?
I just want to point out a correction to the minutes because when we discussed it, we made specific reference to both community centers. So that I think the challenges are both Lions Community Center. One is a community center, one is a community hall. So I think that I'm very much in support of this. It's just that distinction that we want the two recognition walls, the two villages.
Thanks for pointing that out.
So would you like, we can correct this. This is the time now because they have be approved. That recognition wall located in the hallway of the Thorndale Lions Community Center and Dorchester Active Living Center, because it's part of the Lions Active Living Center. Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. So then going back to the motion for 11.2. I'm sorry, did I miss you? Go ahead.
That's okay. So I just wanted some clarification. So the Sports Wall Hall of Fame, very, like you said, stringent kind of criteria in terms of who can qualify. And so I was talking with Councilor Heeman. So the idea of this is there wouldn't be really any criteria. It would be up to the different sports organizations to determine who would make it on the wall. Is that correct?
Exactly. So we didn't want to put parameters on who they were going to feature in their spaces. What parameters we will put in place is, letting them know that Banner Promotions does the artwork in the other area if they would like everything to keep continuity. But no, the parameters would be set by the individual sports associations.
Councillor Heeman?
And just as a follow-up to that, and not to put words in Steve's mouth, but that they would be responsible for hanging them and also making sure that they met the criteria of style guidelines so that we don't just have, it's not a blank check, so to speak, to hang things.
And by they, you mean the sports organizations? Just for clarification? All right. Okay. So the motion then is, you're moving the motion or, I'm sorry, this is a train wreck here.
So it would be that item 11.2 be approved as amended.
And the mover for that was?
Yeah, I'll move that. as
Okay.
amended.
Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. So on to the mayor's report. I'm pleased to report my activities since the last report. During the month of October, in addition to regular attendance at Middlesex County Council, Library Advisory Board, Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Board, Economic Advisory Board, I was pleased to be present for the official ribbon cutting of the Thorndale Walking Trail. A number of community members came out along with MPP Rob Flack, representation from Thames Centre Council, as well as staff to witness the celebration just ahead of our annual fall meeting of council in Thorndale. I also had the opportunity to have an introductory meeting with Mayor Josh Morgan of the City of London, where we shared a little of our common interests within the region. Of course, the following weekend saw the annual Thanksgiving Day Parade in Dorchester. The weather was great and the turnout along the parade route was amazing. All the councillors got rid of their candy giveaways before the parade even ended, including the dog biscuits that I brought for the dogs. Our sincere thanks to everyone involved in making this parade an annual success. Your work does not go unrecognized. On October the 17th, I attended the first of several fall emergency exercises held in various locations around the Middlesex County. The first one was held at this fire station in the municipality of Adelaide Metcalfe and will be followed by a number of others, one of course being here in Thames Centre on November the 6th. The purpose is to have the emergency workers of all stripes along with elected officials prepared in case of an actual emergency. Each one is a learning exercise and are being evaluated in order to know what areas can be improved on. On Saturday, October the 19th, I was invited to be present and welcome Legion members, about 150 of them, from Southwestern Ontario as they held their annual fall conference at the Flight Exec Centre, being chosen as their location this year. Thanks to our Environmental Advisory Board and the many staff on hand, Thames Centre was able to hold two green town halls, one in Dorchester and one in Thorndale. Both were very successful with great attendance and ideas being presented to from the community members in attendance. During the first year of council, we approved the tree planting program and planted 15,000 trees in the municipality. And in the near future, a media release concerning this initiative will follow. As a note to all residents following the fiscal side of goings on in the municipality, I'm pleased to let you know that our budget 2025 survey is online, live on our website for all interested parties. And last but by no means least, I'm very proud to announce that Thames Centre has been recognized as one of the best places to work in the London region amongst medium-sized employers across all employer types. I congratulate our exceptional staff and give them a lot of credit for responding to the call to complete a confidential survey that determined the results. So kudos to everyone. Thank you. Any unfinished business? None. A notice of motion being presented by Councillor Heeman. And that motion reads that council directs staff to lower the speed limit on Fairview Road from the northern approach into the town of Thorndale from a 80 km/h speed limit to a 60 km/h speed limit, starting at the railway crossing, and to have the previous 60 km/h transition be set to 40 km/h. Any discussion on that motion? In that case, yes, you have something you'd like to say, Councillor Heeman?
Yeah, if I may motivate the motion and offer a slight correction. It's actually a 50, not a 60. So I made a slight error in that instance.
So for clarification, it goes down from 80 to 50, not 80 to 60.
No, it's had to have the previous 60, so that would be 50.
Okay.
And then just to motivate the motion a little further, this is really kind of sparked by some concerns that have been expressed to me, largely by residents in that area, and I can anecdotally attest to it as well. We're seeing a lot more recreational use of that section of road. There, with the development of the Elliott subdivision, there's going to be a lot more people in that region as well, and there already are some completed houses that are making use of their local area, and there's an added sidewalk from the new development. Likewise, this is the area directly with the West Nizari Manor, so the senior center. And the idea to change it from a 50 to a 40 is to make it consistent with the south side of Fairview in town, which is zoned as a 40. To have the phased in approach would match the south side as well. I could attest to about 4 years ago, the 60 sign had deteriorated and was no longer present there, and we were getting a lot of instances of speeding and traffic similar to what I'm getting now. And when we put that 60 back up, it did help mitigate some of those concerns where people are going 80 and then there's an abrupt transition into the urban boundary. And so this would, in essence, develocitize drivers on that stretch coming north into town in the southern direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Any other, Deputy Mayor Smygrave?
Thank you. I'm not an expert in terms of speed limit, so I'm just looking for some information to help inform any decisions that we make. So I'm just looking, I want to make an inquiry for staff in terms of complaints that they received and any recommendations or thoughts on the proposed motion.
Director Craven, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. To answer the first question for complaints, I have not personally received any complaints on this section. As far as speed limits and whatnot, urban speed limits are usually 50K and rural are 80. Right now, as Councilor Heeman mentioned, it transitions from 50 up to 80 right outside the urban boundary. That's what the current signs are doing right now. Sorry, one more, I guess, bit of information. We haven't done any kind of speed analysis on this section of road either to know if cars are adhering to these speeds or whatnot too. I don't have that information as yet. It's a matter of put a speed trailer out if you want that information.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship, I do know that going from an 80 to a 40 is a little bit, overwhelming as a driver. And that part of the motion, I don't see a problem because it's just for a short section. I think it's important to have the transition.
Anyone else? Councillor Crockett?
Further to Councillor Lockie's comment, I think to the transition that we're speaking about is, should this change be made through the motion, it'll be the same as it is on the south end of Fairview Road. And I think if if in the coming year, the roads crew can do a road survey in this area or to bring forward a roads report, and if anything changes abruptly following this decision, they can come forward with it then. It just seems to be a matter of signs for right now. So, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. Well, we have a motion in front of us with a slight change in the mileage. It's moved by Councillor Heeman. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Lockie? All in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. All right, thank you. I don't believe there's any other new business requiring direction. So a mover and a seconder that bylaw 772024 be adopted as presented. And that, wait a minute, I think we made a head of it. Just using this one. Okay. A bylaw, 772024, being a bylaw to change the name of the Director of Financial Services Treasurer. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. At this time, a mover and a seconder to allow council to move into closed session so that council adjourn at 7:13 PM to move into closed session pursuant to section 239K, 2K of the Municipal Act 2001. Council will consider a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Crockett and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? That is carried then. Thank you. At this point, we could take maybe a 10-minute break and then resume. Thank you all.